High Vibe Nation is live. Welcome to the High Vibe Nation, where we have set out to raise the vibration of every human being on the planet. Your hosts on this journey are Sherry Gideons and Pamela Aubrey. So let's join them now in their current interview with a high-vibing individual.
The High Vibe Nation, a revolution of love. It's time to rise and live your best life now. I'm your host, Sherry Gideons, and this is my co-host, Pamela Aubrey.
Welcome, everyone. We are so happy to be here with you this evening. We're here with a very special guest, Victoria Johnson. She is a #1 best-selling author, uplifting motivational speaker, podcast host, and Hay House expert. And she is also a world-renowned professional life coach. It is her passion to help others weave a beautiful and happy life. So welcome to the show, Victoria.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Wow. Such a joy to have you. So as you know, on the High Vibe Nation, we love to talk about being high vibe. So we just want to ask you, what does it mean to you to be high vibe?
Well, first of all, let me congratulate you on that name, because just saying it makes me happy.
Thank you.
I'm sure so many people feel that way. You know, for me, I really follow Esther Hicks and Abraham Hicks a lot, and they talk about the different levels of vibration, you know, where joy is the highest. And just always, when I think high vibe, I just think of always reaching for that highest possible emotion and feeling and sharing that with others. And just, that's what we want to bring, right? We want to bring that. That's what we want to share with other people. We don't want to be bringing other people down when we're around them. We want to be lifting them up and radiating that and drawing it into our lives even more.
Oh, absolutely. Love that.
Heck yeah. Well, that's both what Pam and I are about. And that's why we have this show, because we're all about being ourselves and playing full out. So gosh, thank you so much for that. We appreciate it. So let's get started and find out, who is Victoria Johnson? Tell us a little bit about your life. Start us out from right there.
Okay. Well, I will start, I guess, at the beginning.
Okay.
And you know, what really inspired me to become a writer, I think, is my life story. So it's a good place to start. And I often thought throughout my life that, you know, I was the only one struggling and I was the only one having these feelings. But as I got older and developed more spiritually and emotionally, I realized that there's so many people like me who are feeling these things and going through these things. I think almost all of us are. And unfortunately, we all have this belief that we're alone. You know, we have this shame that we're the only one feeling these feelings. So I wanted to share my story and did so through my book. And that is why I'm with you here today to share again. So I will start at the beginning, sharing in a high vibe way, and knowing that I'm not looking for anyone to feel bad for me, but just to know that they are not alone. And, you know, that everything that we experience in life just lifts us to a higher place and makes life even better for us. So for me, I started off as a child of adoption. So I lived with my birth family for 6 months, and then I went into children's aid, which is like an orphanage situation, for a few months. Then I was adopted to my family, the Johnson family, and you know, had a wonderful upbringing. I somehow, though, always had this: I don't belong, I'm not good enough, I don't fit in. All of this messaging, I'm different, I'm not as lovable, and all of this messaging that no one was giving to me, but just feelings that I had about myself, knowing that I was different. You know, in my mind, I felt like I was different because I lived in a small town. Adoption wasn't a real common thing, right? Mm-hmm. And so going through those experiences, and then also moving into my teenage years, I found that because I felt that way, I spent a lot of time looking for acceptance in the wrong places, right? wanting to fit in so desperately that I just changed who I was continuously, and ended up harming myself a lot because of that. And there was so many lessons along the way through all of that. And I'd love to share some of those lessons with you and with your listeners. So, maybe share with me something that stands out from your teenage years, and we can kind of talk about that. And because, like I said, I know we're all the same.
Mm-hmm.
So
I love that. Yeah, I mean, I think I can relate to you, and that feeling of not belonging, or just feeling like you're a little bit of a square peg in a round hole.
Yes, that's exactly it. And, for some reason, we shift that into being bad, right? Instead of just saying, okay, so my situation's a little different. Mm-hmm. For me, anyways, I decided that it was because there was something unlovable about me, something that made me bad, right? And then I was raised in a Christian home. My mother was a minister, and so part of that added to that too was that I didn't quite fit in there either. My beliefs were just a little bit different. And, can you imagine being like 9, 10 years old and knowing that your beliefs are a little bit different and not knowing why? Mm-hmm. Who am I to question anything at that age, right? So
I
again,
relate so much with you, Victoria, just on what you just said, because same here. I grew up in a Christian home. My grandfather was a Baptist minister. I went to Christian school, and just very much what you said, I, was different, and I was a questioner. And when asked the questions that I have a feeling you're going to kind of say that you went through as well, but I was always told, because I'm a child of the 60s and 70s, I was always told, don't ask questions, do as you're told.
Yes, absolutely. And, that's not to condemn our parents or our grandparents or anything like that. That's just the way it was, right? Mm-hmm. And so for me, I was fortunate that I was very young when actually the mother of a boy I was dating gave me Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life. She was probably terrified because I was dating her son. And so she thought she'd fix me with the book, and it worked. And so I realized then when I read the book, hey, you know what? I'm not the only one on this planet that feels this way. Right? And it's okay to have experienced rejection or perceived rejection, and to still be able to move on and to move forward and to love yourself anyways. Mm-hmm. Right? Wow. That was the big lesson there, that it's okay to love myself, that I'm still worthy of love. And I know that so many of us, like in our 40s and 50s, are still working on that self-love piece. And I think it's just something that we, have to develop as a habit, because there's always going to be obstacles. And, for the people who are listening who maybe had just an absolutely ideal childhood, that maybe they got divorced when they were 25, or maybe they got fired when they were 30, whatever the obstacle is, you are still lovable, you are worthy, you don't have to do anything to deserve love. And when I really began to grasp that, to really believe that, then everything started to change for me.
And how old were you when you started to get there?
Well, it's funny, because I was first exposed to that when I was in my late teenage years.
Okay.
And actually, I was probably around 20. And so, I did pretty good there in my early 20s. And, I had a little relapse. And then, I would kind of go in and out for a few years here and a few years there. And, I think when I was about 40, it stuck. And I was just, maybe there's something magic about that number. And just really embracing that self-love piece. And, that doesn't mean there wasn't ups and downs still, but it meant that I knew who I was and was able to trust that and able to live within my passion. And my passion, of course, is helping other people who are feeling the same way to be healed from loving themselves. You know, so often we talk about this word healing and people get a little bit apprehensive about it, but really, you know, healing our life is about loving ourselves and accepting who we are and knowing that we have that power, right? We truly do.
So amazing. And so what do you think was, you know, kind of that turning point for you where you really just came home to yourself?
You know, I think that it was when my adopted mother got sick. So her name is Pauline, and I'm just going to call her mom because she's mom to me. And when mom got sick with cancer, you know, she and I had never been particularly close, and we were very different. And she all of a sudden needed me and wanted me. And I felt, oh, I'm going to choke up here. I felt so loved and so needed and so desired and important and valued. And it just allowed so much of me to heal. You know, all of those pieces of not being good enough, right? Just really healed. And my mom was sick for 4 years, and, you know, bless her, she was a champion, and she had cancer, but she did not die from cancer. She passed away, you know, at home, had been sitting in the porch swing watching the birds. And the thing is that journey, that 4 years with her, was the most healing time of my life. And since then, I have just really been able to focus wholeheartedly on helping other people to have that same feeling of value.
Wow. So beautiful.
Absolutely. It touches my heart because it makes me think of so many of the things that have happened in myself and my own path of healing. And, you know, in my case, it was a near-death experience in the 90s. And all of a sudden I was just awakened at the core, and I was hungry to be that woman that I had been shown in the light. And Louise Hay, you bring her up, and it's so awesome that you do, because I'm a licensed spiritual practitioner with the Center for Spiritual Livings, which Louise
Beautiful.
Hay, originally came from. And even my mentor for 20 years now, studied with Louise Hay in New York City when they very first went through practitioner school together. So I too have used that book for so many things, because a lot of the struggles that I went through were very much like you're talking about. I wanted to fit in and be loved. I wanted to be accepted. And I did a lot of things to hurt myself as well. And I believe there's so many people out there across the world that have done the same thing. And to hear a message coming forward through you like this, I mean, as you're just so graciously sharing, I can feel your heart. I can feel your open service heart. And so let's step back for a second. As you were starting to really become aware of this part of yourself, what were some of the tools that you were becoming aware of that you were able to use and apply that began to really shift and change your experience in your world and your life?
You know, I'm really glad that you mentioned that. So I'm going to go back to my teenage years for just a little bit here. And, you know, you talked about being raised in the Baptist church. So you'll understand what I'm saying, as many people will, that I had always felt there was a calling on my life, a calling to the ministry. I knew this, right? And I remember being, you know, a rebellious 15-year-old and knowing this, but still somehow knowing that it wasn't behind a pulpit. And that was totally foreign to me, because where else would it possibly be? Right? Where else could you have a ministry? You know, it just didn't make sense to me. And so the tool that I found that has been the most valuable to me is just really knowing that wherever I go, my ministry is. Right? So if it's us talking here today, if it is talking to the clerk at the grocery store, if wherever it is, that's where my ministry is. And, you know, I have been affirming for many, many years that I travel the world and I share my story and people are healed by it. And, you know, in my mind, that meant that I was traveling the world. and sharing my story, and people were being healed by it. And it wasn't until maybe 2 years ago I realized that through platforms like this, and through my book, and through podcasts and things like that, I'm actually traveling the world and sharing my story, and people are being healed by it. And so, one of the things that Louise always said is the point of power is in the present moment. So the greatest tool that you can have is just wherever you are, be there, and be there with love.
I really love that. And I love this idea that really, our ministry comes from our spirit. I mean, we all carry our ministry with us. It's right inside us. And so even if we don't think of it in those terms necessarily, it's still, what do we have to offer humanity? And you've really obviously tapped into that and helped others to tap into that. So what is just, one step that someone can take towards doing that in their own life?
Towards helping others?
And really tapping into what service they want to bring to the world.
That's a really good point. Really tapping into that service that they want to bring. First of all, I would suggest let go of all the shoulds in your life, right? When, it's like, well, I really should do this, and I could be valuable in this way, or I should do that and be valuable in that way. But instead, just really getting quiet with yourself, spending a lot of time journaling, and just really going deep inside and saying, what is it that I'm here for? What is it? What is it? What is the reason that I'm on this planet? And letting go of any limiting belief you may have that maybe has been taught to you through negative messaging or just society's messages. Maybe your desire to be of service is to be a nurse, but you're a man and you've got in your mind this stereotype that men aren't nurses, right? Just letting go of all the shoulds, letting go of all the society pressures, and just really go to where your heart is. And when you go to where your heart is, then everything becomes so much easier, right? You can work with passion 12 hours a day doing what you love. You can be rest assured that the money will follow, because money is an important part of life as well. We need to it doesn't matter how spiritual our work is, we still need to make a living at it, right? And when we're on the right path and we're doing the right things, I believe that the money just follows, it just shows up. And to be able to just live your own truth is the most amazing feeling that there is. It's really part of that acceptance, right? That self-acceptance.
Oh, such key, because you're really triggering some deep rooted healings that occurred in my own journey around, you use the word passion. And, one of the things that Michael Beckwith always says is to ask the question, what is seeking to emerge through me? And I would ask that question. You talk about journaling, and journaling is part of my daily non-negotiables. It's something that the moment that I begin doing it, it invokes a vibration in me. It invokes a feeling. And it's from that feeling that I align and activate that feeling of passion. And so when I ask the question, what is seeking to emerge through me? Just as you said earlier, I get out of the way of the analyzing, the rationalizing, the scrutinizing, and rest assured, I like to use your words, rest assured, whether it be money, whether it be any kind of a desire I have, it just shows up. And it's like Pam and I've been talking recently, it's showing up so fast because we're bending time now from surrendering and allowing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's so true. And I really like what you've shared, that quote. Can you just say it one more time for me?
What is seeking? So you ask yourself the question, what is seeking to emerge through me?
Mm-hmm. So powerful.
Emerge through me, yes.
Right. It's so much bigger than ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
So much bigger than the ego, than the obstacles. What is seeking to emerge through me? Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with me.
Oh, you know what? You triggered that. I mean, just from just what you said, your ministry is right here in the now.
Yes.
And I like to call it, spreading those vibrational frequencies, that white light of love that is going to transfer itself globally all over the world to people listening to this podcast right now, because what you're seeking is always seeking you.
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
speaking right through you. Woo! Did I just get the chills as I said that?
Oh, fabulous.
Well, and I think it's so amazing too, because, when we do that, this is what happens. It has that chain reaction where we bring something to the table, and then that helps someone else bring something to the table, and then that helps someone else. And it's just, it's like the power that we have as a collective, if we could really understand it and just tap into it.
Absolutely. When you're talking just now, it reminds me of that Marianne Williamson quote, who am I to be? So bright. And the question is, who am I not to be? And, when we join together like this, and the people who are watching, when our energies are connected, whether you're watching live or watching later, it just raises the vibration so much throughout the planet. It's just an amazing thing to me, and I'm so glad to be a part of it. Like, how blessed are we that this is how we spend our days?
Right. And I love that you said that, because that is one of my favorite quotes. So thank you for sharing that.
Yes. Lovely. Lovely.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about, because my gosh, girl, when I was looking at your bio, I mean, we had, basically been talking back and forth. I was looking at your bio and I thought, man, she's a reflection of all of the things, that we're all trying to transfer worldwide. But we want to hear about you, because I mean, my goodness, Louise, hey, you've been, I mean, what did I read too? That you're with, was it Dale Carnegie?
Yes. So I did Dale Carnegie training very young, which was probably a really positive thing in my life. So let me just say this to people who are listening, when something appears, just do it, right?
Yes.
Just do it. So often, we wait for the right time. We wait for this, the perfect situation. Just do it. Right. And, if something happens that you can't finish, or you have to drop out, or maybe you don't do it as well as you had hoped, just be compassionate with yourself. It's okay. Right. But the opportunity and the lesson is there for a reason. And to be able to have that confidence that comes from, taking these opportunities, reading books, listening to Audible, just, it's basically, it's like our spiritual diet, our emotional diet is, if we sit around eating junk food all day, right, our bodies are going to reflect that. Our energy is going to reflect that. And the same thing with our mind, right? What we put in there is going to be what comes out. And so, just doing the best you can, and just enjoying life, and being kind to yourself, and compassionate and loving. And when you're doing that, then more opportunities are drawn to you over and over again. And, for me now to have the opportunity for the last several years to be the Heal Your Life trainer for Canada, training other people to be workshop teachers and Heal Your Life coaches, who would have ever dreamed that when you started, right? Like when I was first given that book, when I think I was about 20 years old, or maybe just a little bit younger than 20, I could have never foreseen that. But, trusting in that process, taking the steps, moving forward, just really embracing opportunity as it presents itself to you. And, suddenly it seems like an instant, but time will have passed, and you'll look back and you'll see how it was built, right? How it's got that strong foundation, and how it was built that you are now able to do what it is that you love to do full time and make a good living at it.
Well, and I think that speaks perfectly to the title of your book, which is Do That and Then Some.
Yes. So, it's quite funny how the title came about. I know it's a little bit different. I was talking to a girlfriend, and I was talking about chai latte. And I had made one at home, and I had done something a little bit fancy. And she said, That's just you, Victoria. You always do that and then some.
I love
it.
And so in the book, it's do that and then some, transform feelings of less than to more than enough. And so, so many of us have those feelings of less than that we do need to transform. And so what I did is, in each chapter, like I just flipped it open to this chapter, they say depression is a dip. No, it's more like drowning. Right. And so that's the chapter. But then at the end of the chapter, there's steps that are the and then some steps. And so, following through those steps, either in your own journal or you can get the workbook that goes with the book. And then, you get to work through all of these different processes, whether it's inner child work or if it's around relationships or around your career or your finances, whatever that might be. We all seem to have areas of our life where, at one point or another, it's more important than another area. So, that's one thing that I really love about this book too, is you can go back to it and say, okay, this time I want to really focus on the relationship aspect or the family dynamics aspect or my inner child work, whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm. So was a lot of what you started out in the book, did it come from your own childhood and the same type of questions that you had going on in yourself or the things that you were dealing with in your own life?
It absolutely did. And I'm really glad that you brought that up, because I think the very first chapter is called Your Inner Child is a Superhero. And I'm like, oh God, I really do not want to talk about inner child. I am so over inner child. Yeah. Just for the record, none of us are over inner child. And, it's something that we all have inside of us. And thank goodness we do, because she protects us, in ways that are great, but she also protects us from great opportunities as well, based on what our belief system is. And so just really learning to connect with that inner child and to love her and to have her trust you going forward and really becoming one is so important. Before we begin any of the other work, that part has to be dealt with. And I talk about in the book how I tried to come up with a fancy name for inner child, but it just is what it is. And it is our inner child work that we need to do, and really learning to love that person in the mirror, really learning to love all phases of ourselves, and whether that is, from the time when we were very young children or teenagers, or maybe in our first relationships or our first jobs, whatever it may be, loving all those different parts of ourselves. And then we, can really merge with that inner child with love and acceptance. And we can still be looking at her and saying, don't worry, I got you.
That's so perfect. So how do you feel like your book ties into your other work?
Okay, so that's interesting, because I do a few different things and I totally love it all. So I have a couple of podcasts, and one of them is the Heal Your Life Talk radio show, which I, of course, spend a lot of time talking about mirror work and healing that inner child and so on. And so that Heal Your Life piece really ties in there as well. The other one is motivational quotes and inspirational life stories. And I love talking to people who have overcome adversity, because that's how I believe so many of us learn, is just to listening to other people's stories. None of us need to be lectured. It's like the warning label on the cigarette package, right? It doesn't work, right? If it worked, there would be no smokers, and it's the same thing when people are telling us, telling, right? But when we're sharing and, we're saying how we have overcome things, things really tie together nicely. And, as a writer, I have spent a lot of time developing marketing skills and so on. So I run a writer's workshop annually. This year is already full, so we're taking a waiting list for the spring of 2021 to have this time where people, who are spiritual entrepreneurs, who are spiritual seekers, who want to share their story, who want to help other people to grow, to get together and to participate in this workshop and retreat together just really brings everything full circle for me. And I'm so passionate about helping writers become best-selling authors. You know, it's so much work to write a book, not only the actual to-do list, you know, putting the chapters together, writing it and so on, but the processing of each and every emotion as you go through it, that, you know, we want people to read it. So that we're not just an author, but people are actually reading our book, and so I'm really passionate about helping other people with that as well.
Oh, I love it! I just published my first book in March.
Congratulations!
Thank you. And you're right; it was such a process. Of course, you know, with obviously doing the cover back and forth, and you know, working with having it edited properly and all of that. I mean, there's so much to it that you don't even realize. Through the process. So now I'm moving on to the next one, but there's so many amazing things that are showing up in the moment these days that I have to really be mindful of putting in its succinct order, what's right for me right now. And so
that's right.
I love that you're bringing that up. But one of the things I want to step back on for a second, because one of the things that when the vision came through for this show was about really bringing through practical solutions and practical ways for people to apply, all this information around spirituality and the state of being and shifting your mindset. And so in your book, do you use the processes of Louise Hay, like doing prayer treatment, like what I would do as a spiritual practitioner?
Absolutely, I do. It's very practical, step by step through each chapter. I think there's 29 chapters, and because you're absolutely right, people need the tools to do things, and so many people just finding that workbook process. That's where they're having those aha moments. And so, to the readers, whatever book you're reading, let me say, take the time, do the steps. The author has very carefully laid them out for you. And, some of them you'll find that you really resonate with and they're very valuable to you. Other ones, not as much, and that's okay. But to find those gems, is really important no matter what book it is. And so many people have gone through, when I think of like the Wayne Dyers, the Louise Hays, the Deepak Chopras of life, who have really come up with, these precise methods. We make them our own as we go forward. I'm a big fan of Gabrielle Bernstein, and I remember her saying one time, I write the book and I have the steps, and not everything is, uniquely my own. It's things that I've learned from other people, but it's my voice, right? So whatever voice that is you're resonating with, to just absolutely follow the steps they're laying out. When you feel inspiration to try things a little differently, do that as well, right? Do that and then some, just continue to move forward. Treat yourself like the important person that you are, right? An example that's coming to mind right now is I remember being in my early 20s and I worked at a bank. And I was so responsible with their money. I knew where every cent went and was really organized and so on. My personal finances were a wreck, right? But with theirs, I was absolutely precise. And I think that when we apply that to ourselves as well, and treating ourselves as an important career, as an important job, right? To go ahead and do these steps and to not say, well, first I have to do the laundry, or I have to do this or do that, or I haven't got time, to really just prioritize ourselves and work through things. That's when the real growth happens.
And I think that's such an amazing point, because I think right now is a time when people are sort of struggling with, self-care and being able to, put themselves in a place where they feel that way toward themselves. And so, when you're kind of in those those more challenging times? What's one of your favorite tools, to kind of bring yourself up to the next level?
So I find that when I'm challenged, first of all, people are always surprised to hear that I'm an introvert. And so really finding that time for myself, right? That I have to just really be alone and get centered. Sometimes I'll go to a hotel for a couple of days, whatever it is I need to do. But something that anyone can do instantly is start writing things down. Write down how you're feeling. And don't judge yourself while you're doing it, right? If you are mad and resentful and bitter, write it down. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be spiritual, right? Just write it down. And part of that process is the releasing. And I find when I'm feeling like I really need to recharge, when I sit down and really examine how I'm feeling, then I notice the areas where, maybe I need to let go of this and maybe I need to spend more time on that. So that's my number one tool. Being a Louise Hay teacher, of course, I'm going to say mirror work. And the beautiful thing about that is we can all do it anywhere. Right. And so often I think we make spiritual growth complicated and serious. Right. And we don't have to do that. Right. We can instead just go to the mirror and be like, okay, this happened. This is how I'm feeling. I love you anyways. You're a terrific person. Let's keep going. Right. And just whatever that connection in the mirror needs to be. And, really let me encourage your listeners to make it habitual. When you're washing your hands, look yourself in the eye. Right. I love you. I really love you. And that's a lot harder than it sounds for a lot of people. But you can also be willing. Right. I'm willing to love you. Right. I'm ready to love you. I like you quite a lot, right? And just something that we can do in our car, glancing in the rearview mirror, just reinforcing all day long. I think they say we have something like 65 to 80,000 thoughts a day, right? And most of those are the same thoughts repeating over and over again. And they're things like, oh my God, I can't believe I forgot that. Oh, I'm always late. All of those thoughts like, oh, I don't feel comfortable in my clothes, whatever it might be. But those positive thoughts, those things that we are saying to ourselves in the mirror and so on, we'll do those 3 times a day and think, okay, I can check that box. I've done my spiritual growth work for the day, right? But to make it a habit throughout the day, to really reinforce it and just make it a part of your life.
Girl, you are talking my language. Pam will tell you how many times I have spoken about this on our show. I wake up every single morning. I have a ritual and I go straight to the mirror and I look at myself in the mirror and I just say, you're magnificent, or I love you, or you know what? As crazy as it sounds, I'll sometimes even go naked in the mirror and I will look at myself and I'll start talking to my cells and I'll say, cells, my God, I am so grateful for, how you are constantly rejuvenating and, restoring my body and how every organ is functioning at its highest capacity. And I'll look at myself back in the mirror. I'll get up right up on it. I'll look straight into my eyes like you're talking about. And I'll say, you're a rock star.
And talk about high vibe, right?
Yeah, it does.
How hard would it be to be miserable in that moment? No?
Exactly.
Well, and I love that it's kind of like you're giving yourself permission. It's like we have no problem saying all these negative things to ourselves. Why is there this idea that we can't say positive things to ourselves too, that it's literally just a choice. We get to choose what we tell ourselves, and we can choose to just say good things and to love
Absolutely.
ourselves.
And for anyone who's listening who thinks, well, maybe there's some ego involved there and so on, the absolute opposite is true. And you'll know this when you get real with yourself in the mirror, and just really spending that time connected to your soul, connected to that inner child as well, and really in that mirror loving yourself. And, I think that so often we maybe use it as a bit of an excuse that somewhere along the line, I don't know how old we were, where, all of a sudden it wasn't okay to call ourselves smart or to acknowledge that we're attractive, and each of us on this planet are, or to say, yeah, I really do have a good singing voice, or yes, I am an excellent writer. It just all of a sudden at some point in our life became not okay to think it, never mind say it. And Sherry and Pamela, I know that you speak loudly on this with me, where we say, please claim your magnificence.
Yes.
Please.
Absolutely.
It has absolutely nothing to do with ego. It is who you are. It is the essence of you and deserves to be celebrated.
And, I was just thinking about this the other day, and one of the things that came to me is that I almost feel like it's disrespectful when we don't. Like, we've been giving this amazing beingness, right? And who are we to say that it's not magnificent?
That's right. That's absolutely it. And, when you were talking earlier, Sherry, about, talking to your organs and your cells, the very fact that we get out of bed every morning and we put our feet on the ground and we stand up and we move forward, right there, that's a miracle, right? And, who are we, like you say, Pamela, to minimize who we are?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so funny about that too, is like, even like how we were all just laughing a few minutes ago, like one of our guests that's on the show, one of our viewers, Cindy is one of our greatest fans, and she's just this amazing woman. And one of the things, she loves what I do, and she always encourages me to do it on the show, is I go, I shook a boom, boom, boom. That makes me happy. That puts the chills all over me, and it gives me the cherry dance. I shook a boom, boom, boom. So I just did it just for her.
I'm glad you did, because, it reminded me of something else I wanted to share. I was talking a bit earlier about how spiritual growth does not have to be so serious all the time. But I also want to talk about forgiveness for a minute, if I could.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So, so each of us has things in our life that we need to forgive, ourselves, other people, the situation. And we can make that mountain so big. And, one of the things I talk about in the book is, for example, divorce, two women, maybe the same situation, married for 10 years, their spouse, and let's not even say women, let's say spouse, right? Okay. So, the spouse maybe cheats on them, and the other spouse has to start all over with children and raising them and so on. And, one person can be like, what, this turned out to be a really great thing. The kids and I are doing great. I know in the long term, this is better. And then the other person can choose to be, well, that person left me. Look at me now. I only have one income. I've got to raise these kids on my own, and so on and so on. Same situation, completely different attitudes. And when it comes to forgiveness, I know for me, I had always made it out to be this really big, hard, serious thing, right? When really it's a choice, like we talked about earlier, how things in our lives are choices. And, I can choose to forgive someone. I can make that choice. I can spend a few minutes, seconds even, in meditation and just forgive that person. Now, that doesn't mean I need to phone them up and say, hey, let's go for lunch next week because I want to tell you that I forgive you. Right? But I can set my space free. Does that make sense?
100%. Yeah. And I think, we confuse forgiveness with saying, oh, whatever they did is okay. And I think it's important for us to realize, and I personally learned this from Oprah, that forgiveness is really just accepting that it couldn't have been any other way. And then looking at it for what it is and taking away the lessons that are positive from it. And what can we walk away with that is going to make our lives and others' lives better?
Yes, absolutely. It doesn't condone the behavior, but it sets you free.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's so interesting you bring that topic up too, because I've had two instances, very pivotal instances around that, with the relationship with my father and the relationship with my husband. And interestingly enough, my father was an overachiever. And so his way of giving love was attributed to how well you performed in life, how perfect you were. And so when I made choices, we talk about choices, when the choices didn't fit into his perspective of the way things should be, he would condemn me and say things to me that would make me feel bad about myself. And so, of course, the self-talk came in. But as I went on, fast forward to my own spiritual journey and my spiritual path, what I learned is, what I took from that was that I could forgive, just like you said, inwardly. And what I really did, when you talk about the inner child work, is I would go and see my father as a little boy, and me hugging my father as a little boy and telling him how special he was and how loved he was. Just so seeing him as pure love. And then fast forward, the same thing with my husband. We've been together 22 years, and we went through many different periods of, spiritual growth between our relationship. And there came a point where I said, I no longer will put myself in this position. I no longer will live this type of life. And so I walked away from the relationship. He went and, got himself together. But during that time, I didn't go and look for somebody else or look for another relationship to go through. I worked in here with Sherry. And what did I want to feel? What did I want to bring forward to, whether it was that relationship or another relationship? So I would see him as his highest self inside me. I would see him as the beautiful gift he was. And guess what? He healed and we got back together. And even now, I only see him in myself as an extension of the highest, most beautiful love of the spirit.
That is such a beautiful thing to share with us. Thank you so much. And
that's what you said.
I just agree with what you're saying, in that when we treat people as we know they can be, as we, as like you said, their highest self, then that's what they aspire to. And I'm kind of hesitating here, because I always stop myself a little bit on what can I share and what can't I share. But I had someone in my life several years ago now who was not behaving in a very nice way. And was not treating his family as the highest priority in his life. And every time I talked to him, I just reminded him what a good husband he was. And, I swear he looked at me like I was crazy. And, but it came to pass over time. When you see this good in other people, it helps to bring it out. And I'm not saying that we should be living in this little positive bubble where there's no negativity or anything like that, but we can still treat people as their highest self, like you just said. And criticizing them doesn't work. It's like criticizing ourselves doesn't work. It's the same. It's the same with that. And if we stop criticizing ourselves, ourselves and other people in our thoughts, even, our whole life changes. Right? That's really
I think that's such a powerful point, because I think, a lot of us don't think in the terms that, when we're judging other people, we're judging ourselves, that, we're really, really hurting ourselves more than that other person. And it's like we're carrying that energy around with us, essentially. And so then that impacts us emotionally and physically, and then we have all these other things that crop up, and we don't really understand where they came from.
Absolutely. And, they can manifest as physical things within ourselves, but they also manifest in our relationships as well. You're walking around with this chatter in your head all day. If I'm walking around with this chatter in my head all day, then obviously everyone I come in contact with is going to be impacted by that, just like when I'm in high vibe. Right. And they're impacted by that. And so I think it's so important for each of us to take responsibility for the way that we feel, right? Take responsibility for what we say, how we act, right? And let go of the expectations of other people and what they should do, but instead hold them in that highest place.
Leads me to think of, so what are some ways that you work within your own self in the moment around self-talk, or any maybe some negative things that might creep up, some tools you can share with our audience that they can use?
I would love to do that. And I'm going to just share actually from Louise Hay, if that's okay.
Yeah.
This is my go-to list of things to do when the going gets tough, right? Ideally, it's something that I would practice every single day. We all have these aspirations to be perfectly spiritual all day long, right? And that's another chapter in my book. I'm so spiritual right now.
I love it.
I love it.
We're all real, and we all have things going on in our lives, but. So here's some tools really quick. I know we're getting close to the end of our time.
Please share.
Yeah.
Okay. So these are from Louise Hay and How to Love Yourself, or How to Love Yourself. And number one, of course, like we just said, is stop all criticism, because criticism never changes anything. And quite often when I am public speaking, I will ask the audience, how many of you have been criticizing yourself for something for more than 10 years? And most of the audience will put up their hand. And then I ask, has it worked? Right? So stop all self-criticism. Forgive yourself and let that past go. Right? Just let it go. We don't have to hang on to it. We can choose to let it go and to just offer forgiveness to other people, forgiveness to ourselves. So say for example, you're doing something really great. Maybe you're doing an interview like this, or you're speaking on stage, or you are MC at a wedding, or whatever it might be, right? Whatever the situation is, a conversation with a friend, so often we'll do 99 things that we're really proud of, and one thing that we feel like we could have done better. And we will hang on to that one thing. Right? Or 99 people love us and one person criticizes us, and we hang on to that one criticism. I'm asking each of you to, really let that go. Let it go. And when you do make mistakes, as you will, as we all do, just to really forgive yourself. And another thing that Louise always said was to stop scaring yourself. How often do we do that? Right? I can't possibly do this because this will happen or that will happen. Or, if I truly love myself, then what? If I truly love another person, then what? And, a story that I share in the book is about my children and how I would lay awake at night dreaming up these scenarios that were not based at all in reality, just scaring myself, right? So to just really learn to trust life and to stop scaring yourself moving forward, being gentle and kind and patient with yourself, of course, and kind to your mind. It's one thing to be kind to ourselves and to be kind to other people in our actions and in our physical words, or our vocal words, I should say, but, really being kind to your mind as well, and knowing that those negative thoughts, they're actually harmful. And so to just work on noticing them and letting it go, right? It's, okay, I hear you, thought. Thanks for showing up. I'm moving on. Right? I don't need to stay stuck in that. That's a really great way to support yourself. It's a great way to be loving to your negatives, and to expect, with our friends and with our families, with our coworkers, we're so gracious. we don't hold them to a standard of 100% perfect all the time, right? But somehow we do that with ourselves. And, I'm just asking you to, of course, just know that maybe something that you perceive to be negative about yourself, it's just part of who you are, part of what makes you unique and approachable, and how people can relate to you in that way. And to just really know that the essence of who you are is love, always has been, always will be. There's nothing you can do to change that. Mm-hmm. Right? We talked about mirror work, right? Also really taking care of your body. And Sherry and I, we talked in the beginning of this call about coming from a Christian background. And, one thing that you were likely taught, as I was, is, your body is a temple. And, so taking good care of your body. And I think that as a society, we have so often associated that to, a certain weight, or a certain size of clothing. But really taking care of your body is, just being mindful of everything that it consumes. And I'm not just talking about food and beverages, right? I'm talking about the thoughts, the words, the actions, the criticism that we talked about, all of those different things, just really taking care of yourself so that you can be as vibrant and as effective and as impactful in this world as you possibly can be. And, loving yourself, like we've said on this call a few times now, can be so much fun, right? It can be fun. And really enjoying yourself and loving life, knowing life loves you. That's really, as they say, where the magic happens.
Yes.
Yes.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, I really just felt that in my heart. So, and I'm sure that the listeners did as well. And I do feel like a lot of times it's like we almost feel like we need permission to do these things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's so true. I agree with you 100%. Like, we would want these things for other people, but somehow for ourselves, we place something in our way to either stop us or at the very least slow us down. When, that love from the creator, from source energy, from God, from the universe, wherever you believe you have come from, lives inside of you and is the essence of who you are. So shine, 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 at your highest vibration.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, I know. I was just going to say, I say yes. Oh my gosh. So I know you wanted to make sure you shared some things with our audience. So, tell our audience any things that you want to share lastly, and then your book, how they can get your book. We'll post your website.
Okay, that sounds great. So yes, my website is victoriajohnson.org. If you are interested specifically in Heal Your Life training, there is another website, which is thetraining.ca. So that's a .ca with a Canada address, thetraining.ca. VictoriaJohnson.org will take you there as well. Please do find me on YouTube. I've got lots of fun stuff there. It's Victoria Johnson Author. My book, do that, and then some, Transform Feelings of Less Than to More Than Enough. There's the book and the workbook, both on Amazon. You can get it in pretty much any country in the world. I'd love to have you join us on the podcast, and ladies, I'd love to have you be guests on the podcast as well. Heal Your Life Talk radio show, as well as motivational quotes and inspirational life stories. And on Instagram, Heal Your Life Canada. On Facebook, Heal Your Life Training.
Wonderful. And thank you to all of our listeners for being here with us again this evening. As always, such a joy to be here with you all. And Victoria, thank you again. What a blessing to be here with you and to be sharing these messages out to everyone. It just really is so much gratitude I know that all of us have to be able to spend this time with everyone.
Well, you two are such beautiful examples of high vibration. You know, my face is already getting sore from smiling. I'm sure I'll be awake for several hours. So thank you for sharing that high vibration with the world.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And so all of our audience listeners, you can find us on thehighvibenation.com. You can find us on Instagram at The High Vibe Nation. You can find us on Facebook at The High Vibe Nation. And until, today is Wednesday. So until next Monday, when we will be having Mary Helen Hensley on the show. We look forward to that. Until then, thank you all so much and have a great rest of the week.
From everybody here at the High Vibe Nation, we want to say thank you for choosing to raise your vibration. And of course, please like, share, and subscribe. If you need to find us on the web, check us out at www.thehighvibenation.com. Looking forward to seeing you on the next episode, and keep high vibing.